GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, they're taking the world by storm. But pause, before you take them, listen to us, because 40%, in some of the studies, of the weight you lose can come from lean body mass, which includes muscle. That is not a good thing. Today we're going to talk about how you can prevent that from happening and maximize the effects of the GLP-1s and minimize those negative side effects.
The interesting part about this is a challenge for all clients that were pursuing fat loss, even if you weren't taking one of these drugs.
Yeah.
The only thing that this has really changed, at least for me, from my perspective as a trainer who's helped a bunch of people try and lose weight, is it just guarantees they're not going to eat a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the challenges when you were helping a client with weight loss was getting them to adhere to the diet consistently enough that they were in a caloric deficit day in and day out, so that their body would then basically metabolize fat and lose body fat, right?
Well, that's the goal.
Right, that would be the goal. But that is challenging enough as it is, and you'd have clients that would be good for a while, then overeat, and then they'd hit plateaus. And that. But with Ozempic, Mounjaro, all these GLP-1s, getting the client to restrict from calories is not difficult whatsoever.
Yeah.
But the same challenge is presented as the one that I would have with a client who actually did adhere to eating low calorie in the other without the drug. So it's very similar.
It's interesting. Yeah. Thinking back too, like some of my clients, even that we thought was like a real big success out of the gates. It's like, I find out later that they're doing an excessive amount of cardio, not reporting it to me. And you know, this while like cutting calories like crazy, they're losing weight, but we get into this place where it's just not sustainable real fast.
Yeah. So I want to be very clear. So first off, the data does show that people who go on a GLP-1 and do nothing else, right? They just take a GLP-1, they lose a significant amount of weight. I mean, there is never in history has there been a medical intervention, non-surgical, that is even in the same ballpark in terms of effectiveness for weight loss. Okay, so nothing comes close. Now, the studies also show that when people take a GLP-1 and do nothing else, that up to 40% of the weight that they lose is lean body mass. Now, lean body mass is anything that's not body fat. So some of that's water, we'll get to that, but a significant percentage of that is muscle, and that's a big problem. So let's put a pin in that because we'll get to that as well. But I do want to say GLP-1s do not cause muscle loss. So it's not the GLP-1 that causes muscle loss. So when you're taking this, it is not telling your body to lose muscle. It's also not telling your body necessarily to lose fat. It's doing a lot of things, but one of the main things that it does is it really does blunt your appetite. If you simply eat less calories and do nothing else, whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, a significant percentage of the weight that you lose will come from lean body mass. Now, the reason why this happens is that the body, what it does is it tries to meet the new energy intake by lowering its energy demands. In other words, if your body is used to getting, let's say, 2,500 calories a day, and you're not gaining or losing weight, that means you're burning the 2,500 calories a day. But if you suddenly drop that to 1,200 calories a day, your body will lose body fat to try to make up the difference, but then it also learns to adapt and slow its metabolism down. It starts to reduce its energy demands, and muscle is very demanding of energy. Muscle is very metabolically active. So one of the things it does is it reduces muscle mass. And this happens whether you're on a GLP-1 or not. So the GLP-1 doesn't cause muscle loss. In fact, we now have studies, and previous studies have shown this as well, that GLP-1s may actually have a muscle preserving effect. In other words, you'll probably lose less muscle on a GLP-1 versus you just cutting your calories. But that being said, if you take a GLP-1 and you do none of the stuff that we're going to say in this episode, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar, you can guarantee the fact that almost half of the weight will be muscle. And you don't want to do that. You do not want to do that because
it's not a good place to be. Although
too much body fat is a big health risk, too little muscle is also a massive health risk. In fact, I talked about this with a doctor friend of mine over this weekend. Obesity is the epidemic that we always hear about, but there's also this under muscle epidemic that's happening. And if you look at the data on people with heart disease or cancer, It's true that a majority of them are overweight, but there's a sizable minority to the tune of tens of millions of Americans that get diabetes and cancer. And part of the reason why they do is they're fragile. They're weak. They have too little muscle. And muscle is very metabolically active. It's anti-cancer. It's insulin sensitive. It's good for testosterone to attach to in both men and women. And of course, it makes you mobile. It allows you to move, and you fall down, you don't break something and hurt yourself, and you can do things. So you don't want to lose muscle. And then finally, losing muscle slows down your metabolism. You will run into this problem on a GLP-1, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose. You'll lose a significant percentage, but then you'll be stuck. And we run into this with people that we've coached where they had 80 pounds to lose. They lost, 45 or 50 pounds. The last 30 pounds would not come off, and they were eating very low calories. And like, what do I do now? Oh. I can't eat any less. Where am I going to go down below 1,000 calories? Now I'm feeling terrible. I have low energy. How do I lose this excess body fat? It's like your metabolism adapted. And so we don't want to lose muscle because that will make your metabolism slow down. Today's program giveaway is a super bundle. If you want to win, leave a comment below this video. In the first 24 hours that we drop it, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications. We'll let you know in the comment section if you win. We also have a sale, MAPS 15 Performance and the RGB bundle, 50% off. If you're interested, go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. Use the code MAY50 for the discount. Back to the show.
It did feel like that was pretty much everybody, that they would inevitably hit this plateau where they would need a reverse diet. Did not feel like that way. I felt like that way with our experience. Unless you had a very small goal, like maybe someone who only needed to lose, say, 20 pounds.
Yeah, but the big weight loss, that's what they hit.
Yeah, people that had 50 plus pounds, most all of them that we dealt with eventually would hit a plateau and then would end up having to reverse diet. But I mean, bringing this up, the reason why I brought that point up to start this is because a lot of the content that you see online right now is it's one extreme or the other. It's either super pro,
like it fixes everything.
Yeah, it fixes everything. It's going to change. It's for everybody. So you have that, and then you have the other side, which is all the fear mongering that's going on around it. Like, oh, it loses all this muscle, and it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't lose muscle at all. It's the exact same thing that would happen to a client. And let's take the drug out of it completely. If you take two people, one of them is taking Ozempic, the other one is not taking it, but they both same body type, same sex, same everything, identical, and they both cut their calories to 900 calories a day. They will lose the same amount of muscle. In fact, the Ozempic group, from what the studies are now showing, might lose a little less muscle. Yeah. So it has a little bit of a muscle sparing effect. So it is not the GLP-1, it's that it crushes the appetite and the client ends up only eating 900, where the client that doesn't use it is battling with the cravings more than the person that is taking the GLP-1.
Yeah, the way that GLP-1s work is they essentially tell your body you ate. They do increase the secretion of insulin. They do improve insulin sensitivity. This is all independent of weight loss. That's probably why there's a muscle preserving effect, because better insulin sensitivity is pro-muscle. And you see this in the stronger GLP-1s like tirzepatide. I think Mounjaro is the brand name of that one. And then now they have these even stronger ones that are coming out. So yeah, it doesn't cause muscle loss, but if you don't offset what'll happen when you simply eat less, you're not going to be in a great place. And my fear, because here's the deal with GLP-1s, these are culture shifting compounds. I mean, I think that you're going to see, you're probably going to see 2/3 of everyone in a modern society like America is going to be on these, because that's how much overweight. And obesity has now,
and it's also because how effective it is.
Yeah.
It's because it's so effective. If it was mildly effective, I don't know if we'd see it penetrate the entire society that's overweight. But because it's so effective, I think and honestly, a lot of the negative talk around it is like the other real popular negative or fear mongering that goes around the gastric issues and their digestive issues, like. And a lot of that has to do with the dosing.
Yeah.
The other problem that I have with the GLP-1 is that it's so early on in it that we have this kind of generic dose that we're giving.
We'll get to that, because that's 100%.
Yeah,
that's 100%. You're 100%. They're doing a standard dose. There seems to be this individual variance with how people react. Some people need more. and some people need less. But nonetheless, like if you do a GLP-1 right, and there's a lot that goes into this. We're only going to really cover like how to prevent muscle loss, but there's a lot more that that we've talked about in previous episodes. If you do it right and you are the right person for this, I mean, I think these are great. I think they're great compounds. If used properly.
With the right setup. I mean, really, like what we're trying to describe is like what you need to consider even going into it first. And we even talked about, even potentially pursuing like a reverse diet before even going into it would be a good idea.
Yes. What's interesting too is I remember, do you guys remember when they busted the myth that obese people have more muscle?
Yeah.
And they did those scans on them. So sarcopenia or weakness or muscle weakness is actually more common in obese people than it is in healthy weight individuals.
Yep.
So losing muscle when you're already don't have much muscle and you're obese puts you in a really bad place.
Very fragile state.
You can also get to, and I've seen some women that this has happened to, where they were inactive, obese, they were eating bad, they went on GLP-1, they just ate less, they maintained their inactivity, they didn't do anything else. And they got, they went to the doctor, got a bone scan. Doctor's like, you're getting,
Osteoporosis.
you're getting osteopenia. Because if something makes you lose muscle, you can guarantee that it's going to also negatively affect bone. They're very closely connected. Building muscle builds bone. Losing muscle tends to cause bone loss.
Well, especially in the client like you're alluding to that didn't ever really strength train.
Right.
If you never strength train and then you go on a GLP-1 and you just purely lose weight, and if you fall in the category of the people that lose 40% of lean body mass, that's putting that person arguably in a worse situation.
Yes. And in fact, if you again look at studies, you have obese individuals, they have poor health outcomes. You know who's worse than obese individuals? Individuals who are underweight and fragile. They actually have the worst health outcomes because they're typically these people that are not eating much at all. They're inactive for whatever reason. Could be because of depression, could be other reasons. They do very, very poorly. So in other words, what you don't want to do is rob Peter to pay Paul type of deal and put yourself in a worse situation. And not only that, but losing muscle just to get skinny doesn't necessarily look good either. And so this is where you get the, some of the fear mongering, Ozempic face and Ozempic. What you're seeing is when people just cut their calories, first of all, skin requires protein and calories to maintain it. So skin starts to look saggy and people just look not so great. However, if you do it right, these can be absolute game changers. And I firmly believe they are game changers if done properly.
For sure.
So here's the deal. Losing muscle is bad. How do you stop that from happening when you're on a GLP-1? Let's start with the first thing.
Can we start with the point that I made? I feel like that's important.
All right, let's do that. Let's
just because I mentioned it already, and I think that if you're getting started, I think that communicating this to somebody who, or maybe someone's considering getting started, I think the first thing that you should consider is actually going through a direct pharmacy where you can actually
compound pharmacy.
Yeah, compound pharmacy instead of doing these generic brands. These popular brands are already dosed for you.
Yeah.
And in our experience, and we've now worked with a few hundred people, like personally, that we've actually met that are taking this, almost every single person had a different dose.
Yeah.
And the people that had really bad effects as far as digestive stuff was simply by bringing the dose down, fixed it completely.
Yeah.
So, if you're considering this, consider that. Consider going through a compound pharmacy where your doctor can actually prescribe your dose and individualize it for you. I think right now we're just in this weird time that this isn't happening. I think in the future, this will become mandatory.
This will be the standard. I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you're on, when you go with the brand names, because that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
You the brand name ones. There's a dose. It's like some of them are pens that you click or whatever, and that's your dose. And here's how you know you're on too strong of a dose. Your appetite isn't suppressed; it's gone.
Crushed.
Gone.
Completely.
You forget.
Or you're nauseous.
Yeah.
Or you have you stop using the bathroom because it slows down your gastric emptying like too much, right? If you're not eating at all, you're gonna lose weight on the scale, but that's not a good way to lose weight.
Yeah.
And we've talked to people like that where they go on and they're like, I can't eat. I'm like force feeding myself. I feel like throwing up.
I experienced that early on. Remember, we had just flown out to Florida to do a talk, and I had just started it. And I remember, like, normally when we do these events, we go. We're flying, we're moving, and we're talking. And all of us are normally like just ravenous. We're so hungry because we've been talking for long periods of time and we don't get to eat. We don't have our normal eating windows. And I remember looking at you guys like at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and he goes, oh my God, let's go eat. I'm so hungry. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not hungry and I haven't eaten all day.
Yeah.
It just completely slipped my mind. The power of that was wild to me. And just an example, obviously, and everyone's going to be different, but I have found that a lot of the people that were getting the Ozempic, the Wegovy, the ones that were in the preloaded pens, were having that similar experience.
I talked to a woman early on when this first started, and she stopped taking it. So why'd you stop taking it? She says, it felt like the first trimester of pregnancy when I was throwing up every single day.
Yeah.
Not good. Now, the experts that we've had on the show that talk about this, who are leading experts, they all titrate the dose. And so I think that's the case. So talk to your doctor and say, hey, I want to start slow and I want to work my way up to find the right dose. Because if it's too strong, here's the deal. No matter what you do, if you eat too little calories, you lose muscle.
Yes.
Okay? So you need to eat enough to maintain or build some muscle during this process. Otherwise, you're totally screwed. So titrate your dose. We have partners at mphormones.com, by the way, if you don't have a compound pharmacy. Okay. Next point is to eat a high protein diet. So what do I mean by high protein? High protein, like the way that is defined by people in the health and fitness space who refer to the optimal amounts of protein. Because if you go by the FDA, they consider high protein be something completely different than if you ask me, or if you go to the data and you look at what's the amount of protein that is the most effective or optimal. In other words, when do I get the upper limit of effect or benefit from protein? That's what you want right here, right? You don't want what you need because essential protein is very low, but you want what is the amount of protein that minimizes muscle loss to the greatest extent or maximizes muscle building if I'm trying to build muscle. And that for most people is around a gram of protein per pound of target body weight. Okay, it's around there, maybe even a little higher. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're like, my ideal body weight is 150 pounds, this needs to be your everyday hard goal. I will eat 150 grams of protein a day, and this has to happen. Now, ideally, you do this from whole foods. However, in this case, protein shakes are fine because I've worked with enough people on GLP-1s. First of all, it's hard to eat. Yeah, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight without a GLP-1. You
want easily digestible foods,
and not only that, it's just on its own, it crushes your protein. Is very satiating. So you're on top of the GLP-1. Then you try to eat a satiating diet. It's very difficult. So what I was telling these people was try to hit your target at the end of the day. Look at your leftover, throw in a protein shake. Hey, sorry to interrupt. Look, I have a free guide that teaches you how to lose fat in 3 steps, just 3 steps that will burn the most amount of body fat and help keep it off. This guide is totally free. We're giving it to everybody right now. If you want it, click on the link at the top of the description below. All right, back to the show.
This is why I wanted to talk about the titrating first in this, because I really think that point 1 and point 2 are this will make or break you. If you don't have your dose right, you're going to be nauseous. You're not going to like it. It's going to be too much. If you don't have your dose right, eating enough protein for the average client not on a GLP-1 has always been hard for us. We've been screaming it on this podcast for 10 years that every female client that I ever trained, I had to bump her protein. It was just like almost no matter what their goal was. When I would sit down and then track with their protein intake, most people were grossly under eating. Everybody was under eating protein. Nobody was getting the optimal. And to your point, I've trained a lot of clients that were eating okay amount of protein, but not for building muscle, not optimally, or not for sparing muscle when you're on a strict diet. And so I feel like the 1 and 2, this is like the main focus. You got to get enough protein. If you are already eating super low calorie and then you're also eating low amount of protein,
oh boy,
you're
basically telling your body to lose muscle.
Yes, we don't need this muscle. Yeah. We're not feeding it enough calories. We're not feeding it enough protein. We absolutely, it will pare down, and then you will fall into that statistic that you talked about when we first started, which is losing 40% of lean body mass.
Yes. So eat high protein, prioritize it, use shakes if need be. And, again, the studies on protein are really interesting. Like you have 2 low calorie diets. One is high protein. One is, what's considered adequate. The high protein diet loses less muscle and or typically loses more body fat. So here's the deal, everybody. Not only are you going to lose less muscle eating a higher protein diet, you'll probably also encourage more fat loss. And by the way, just to be very clear, keeping muscle maintains more of your metabolism than losing muscle will. So if you want your metabolism not to slow down a lot, which will make fat loss easier and fat loss more sustainable later on, if you plan on at some point coming off a GLP-1, you don't want a metabolism that's really slow.
Yeah.
Then you're definitely going to want to keep that muscle. Eating a high protein diet really, really helps do that. Next, one of the most important things we're going to say today, you got to lift weights. Your body needs a reason to keep muscle. Muscle is active. It's expensive tissue. Your body, listen, it doesn't matter what you do if you don't lift weights. If you were sedentary all day, you'll lose muscle anyway because your body only keeps it if you need it.
Yep.
Lifting weights sends a signal to your body that says, I need strength, so let's prioritize muscle. Now, the recommendation that we make here for lifting is to lift every day. Now, let's pause there for a second. I don't mean work out hard or for hours every day. In fact, one of the big mistakes people make on a GLP-1 is they're like, oh, I got to lift weights, and they suddenly go to the gym and hammer themselves. Yeah. Terrible idea. Suddenly adding a ton of stress to your body, which weight training is, while simultaneously eating less calories is a recipe for, ready for this, muscle loss.
That's right.
It's called overtraining, and you'll lose a lot of muscle. So what do I mean by lift daily? Lift maybe 15 minutes a day, every day. Send a signal every day that you need muscle. Easy. And do 2 exercises a day. That's it.
We are not, here's the thing, the point to get across. You are not going to build muscle right now. You're just not in this calorie deficit. So we're just trying to keep muscle. And so the signal that we need to send to the body is just give it a reason to stay. That's it. It's like, and giving it a reason to stay is just use it. Like literally, that's the way I would be communicating to a client is like, listen, here's your 2 lifts. Just use it. Moderate intensity. I don't need you sweating like crazy. I don't need you going to failure. It's literally go through the motions, tell your body, hey, we need to keep this muscle because I'm going to lift weights every day. And that's it. To think like that. And that's the idea when you go into this is feed the body what it needs protein-wise, send a signal to the body, just 2 exercises to let it know, hey, we're going to need some muscle because we're going to be doing this every day, but no reason to crush it.
Now, someone might be listening and say, well, what if instead of doing 2 exercises a day, what if I worked out like once or twice a week for an hour? You can do that, but I think lifting daily for a short period of time is more anti-catabolic,
for sure,
or is more apt to preserve muscle than the 2 days a week workout, even if all the time is the same, because every single day, what you're sending a nice signal to the body daily that says, keep muscle, keep muscle, keep muscle, keep muscle, every single day. And it's just 2 exercises. Now, the way you do the lifting, by the way, is traditional lifting. So you're lifting weights to get stronger. You're not doing circuit training. You're not hammering yourself with HIIT cardio. It's literally, I'm doing 8 reps and then I'm resting for 2 minutes and then I'm gonna do it again and then rest for 2 minutes and do 2 lifts. That'll take you about 15 minutes.
I mean, and 2, if you're gonna base it all in one big workout, like you're just really not in a really high energy state.
No.
That's true.
And so it's like, it's pretty unreasonable to go a long-winded workout versus like just these small hits throughout the week is such a better, smarter approach.
That's another great reason because I mean, that was one of the other pieces I remember telling you guys. I remember feeling so low energy on the GLP-1 that there was times when it was like, okay, I have enough in me to get in there and do an exercise, 1 or 2 exercises, or help my wife out around the house. Both ain't happening. It was like that. I remember having that internal conversation of like, I just don't have the oomph to do both. And so I like it, to your point, Sal and Justin's, I like the idea of this just moderate intensity every single day versus, I'll just cram it in 1 day a week and muster up the energy and the push. And I just don't think the body in the context of low calorie like these people are in, it's more advantageous to do less harder than it would be more moderate, more times infrequent. I think that's a way better strategy for this person.
Great point. This episode's brought to you by Seed, the world's best probiotic. If you're interested in getting it for a discount, click right here. All right, next up, drink about a half a gallon to a gallon of water a day. Okay, first off, this is, for most people, going to optimize their health from a hydration standpoint. So yes, it's more water than you need. You don't need that much water. But in our experience, training many clients, a half a gallon to a gallon a day improves people's health, digestion, reduces inflammation. They feel better. It tends to help with fat loss, muscle gain, et cetera, et cetera.
Even energy.
Energy. Here's why it's so important here for this group, though. What we find with people on GLP-1s is not only is their hunger signal dampened, but so is their thirst signal.
Yeah.
So when I said in the beginning of this episode, 40% of the weight is lean body mass loss, and I said, and a lot of that is muscle, it's because part of that is actually fluid. It's actually your people lose hydration. Now keep in mind your muscles are 70% fluid, and a muscle that isn't well hydrated also tends to cause muscle loss. So what you want to do is you want to keep yourself hydrated, and this is more important for this group. And when I've talked to our friends who are doctors and experts in this, they tell me, oh yeah, like people have to track their water because they don't have an appetite.
It gets away from them,
Yeah, they also don't want to drink any water. And so this is a recommendation that they told me that I should make when I talk about it on the podcast. Make sure people drinking a good amount of water.
Yep.
And then lastly, there are supplements that are going to help with the catabolic effects of reducing your calories, okay? In other words, these are muscle-preserving supplements or supplements that help counter all of the things that we're talking about on GLP-1, and they are essential amino acids. Now, essential amino acids, I know someone's like, well, protein powder, right? Doesn't that have tons of amino acids? Yes, it's true. But I talked to people on GLP-1s where their appetite got so hammered that by the end of the day, they couldn't even drink a protein shake. But essential amino acids are so thin, it's like flavored water, that they were able
or
to—
even pill form.
that they were able to swallow that. And essential amino acids also help. It's not as good as protein, but it's pretty close because it gives you the amino acids that your body can't produce itself. That's why they're called essential.
I also thought, remember we covered this, his name is slipping me right now, from Keon. And he brought up some studies that even show that even in the context of them hitting their protein intake and stuff like that.
Especially if the calories are low.
When in the context of a low calorie diet, that they found that there was muscle preserving benefits to taking the last time I did my cut was the first time that I really tested that myself, and I attribute the fact that I held on to all my muscle. Like it's hard to, when you're in a cut, not lose some muscle, right? And so we're really trying to just minimize as little as you possibly can. So any time that you can only lose a half a pound or a pound of muscle in pursuit of losing pounds of body fat is a huge win. And this is an easy thing to add, either through just an easy liquid, adding it to your water, or if you can't even do that, just taking pill form. So I do think this is a solid investment.
Next up is creatine. Creatine is very healthy for the body. It's good for the brain. It also is muscle preserving. It will fuel your body with more ATP, gives you more strength, more energy. It also attracts water. So it helps prevent that water loss that happens out of the muscles. Creatine is a staple. First of all, this is a supplement I recommend everybody take anyway. But in this group right here, it's like this is one of the top supplements to take to stop muscle loss. You also have electrolytes. I think electrolytes are very important because when you reduce your food intake, here's what also happens. People eat less. They start eating less processed food. They eat less sodium. Then start noticing things like muscle cramping, loss of energy, whatever. Electrolytes can help with that, but make sure you have a good electrolyte with a decent amount of sodium.
This is a huge one, I think, because I think what happens to a lot of people who have a lot of weight to lose, typically we're eating highly processed foods, and so they're used to a very high sodium intake. And then they get this GLP-1, they quickly find out that their body rejects. I remember this too. Like the only thing that sounded good was like chicken and rice. Like your body, because it slows down the digestive process, you'll see that the things that it has a harder time with, processed foods, it doesn't digest well. And so you start to crave these healthier foods, which is a positive thing. Drawback of that is those have like no sodium in comparison to how high the processed foods are. So you take somebody who was already on a high calorie, overeating, highly processed, high sodium type of diet, and then you put them on a restricted calories, that's already automatically going to lower, and then they only are attracted to whole foods. And so I think that this becomes like one of those supplements that has to be mandatory. Every client that's on a GLP-1 should be taking some sort of an electrolyte.
Oh, and then one last one I forgot to add was HMB. HMB is a metabolite of leucine. It's an amino acid. It's very effective at preventing muscle loss. In fact, this is a supplement that they sometimes give to people who are bedridden or elderly or post-surgery to prevent muscle loss. It's especially effective if you can't hit your protein targets. But I think if you eat high protein, you lift weights, I mean, you do what we're saying, and then you go on a GLP-1, you're going to see not like a little bit less muscle, like significantly less muscle loss. And then if you titrate the dose on top of it and you don't hammer your appetite and you eat in a deficit, but that's not too big of a deficit, I mean, you could potentially, especially if you're not lifting weights now, you could potentially even build a little bit of muscle through this process. And what a great place to be, right? You're not just losing weight, you're actually losing fat and maybe building muscle, but definitely, holding it on. By the way, we have a workout program specifically for people on a GLP-1 called MAPS GLP-1. Because of this episode, it's going to be half off, 50% off. If you're interested, you go to mapsglp1.com, use the code 50OFF, so 50 off GLP-1, and that'll give you 50% off. All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. One of the keys to fat loss is protein. It's true, if you're not eating a high protein diet, you're not going to burn as much body fat as you can. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the smartest ways to use protein for fat burn and to build muscle. You got to watch this.
I wish I understood this earlier in my career. I think it was probably almost 10 years in when I started to just focus on this with clients.
I knew it was important,
Yeah.
but I don't know how important.
Yeah, I also did. I knew it was important, but I also didn't